Hey everyone, and welcome back to another breaking news update. My name is Jimmy Boyd, and you were watching Boyd News. Want to thank you so much for tuning in today. I've got a breaking news report coming out from Nato, and today I have an update to share with you on how Nato could be responding militarily to Russia's recent violations of NATO airspace, like what happened yesterday in Estonia. I've got this new report for you here on your screen. Czech president says Russian aircraft violating NATO should be downed. Peter Pavel, former chairman of NATO's military committee and the current president of Czech Republic, urged allies to respond forcefully to Moscow's provocations. So crazy new update, we finally have calls coming out from NATO to allocate for shooting down Russian aircraft that are violating airspace of NATO. We just had a report yesterday that 3 MiG-31Ks from the Russian Air Force were violating Estonia's airspace right near their capital for up to 12 minutes before Italian Air Force F-35s intercepted these MiG-31s and drove them out of Estonian airspace. We also had a report just about a week and a half ago where we had dozens of drones coming from Ukraine and Belarus going into Polish territory. The Polish Air Force having to scramble fighter jets along with NATO forces to shoot down a lot of these incoming Russian Shahed drones. Soon after that, we had drones entering into Romania as well. So this has been going on for a very long time now, and now we're finally starting to see some aggression coming out from NATO as we've got the Czech president today calling for shooting down Russian fighter jets. So let's talk more about this. We're going to hop on over here to a mainstream news report out of Ukraine called UNN. And it says NATO must respond militarily to Russian violations, including shooting down aircraft, says the Czech president. This is coming out today, September 20th, 2025. You can see the date right here. And there's a photo of Peter Pavel. The information says Czech President Peter Pavel stated that NATO must respond to Russian violations by military means. He also clarified that a military response could include shooting down a Russian aircraft, UNN reports with reference to Radio Prague and CTK. Looking at what is happening around us today, reminding ourselves of the importance of NATO membership is probably more important than ever. It tells us who our true friends and allies are and where we want to belong, said the Czech president speaking to journalists at the opening of NATO Days in Moznov. Yeah, there's a huge air show inside of Czech Republic ongoing right now called NATO Days. It's like a security air show where they're showing off lots of different types of military equipment and aircraft. And it says here he recalled this week's violation of Estonian airspace by Russian fighter jets and the recent invasion of Polish airspace by 24 Russian UAVs. What happened in recent days in Poland, Estonia, what has been happening in Ukraine for 4 years concerns all of us. Because if we do not maintain unity, sooner or later it will happen to us too, Pavel emphasized. On the Czech television, Czech President Peter Pavel stated that in the event of a violation by Russia, NATO must react appropriately. And he says, including by military means, Russia will very quickly realize that it has made a mistake and crossed the line of what is permissible. Unfortunately, this is balancing on the brink of conflict, but it is simply impossible to give in to evil. I'd have to agree with that. He noted that a military response could include shooting down a Russian aircraft, CTK reports. There's some information regarding some of the airspace violations recently. We'll go over this. As reported by UNN, Estonian airspace was violated by Russian military aircraft on Friday. That was just yesterday, where we had 3 MiG-31Ks violating Estonian airspace right by their capital of Tallinn. It says subsequently, the Estonian Ministry of Foreign Affairs summoned the interim chargé d'affaires of the Russian Federation in Estonia to express a protest and hand over a note regarding the violation of the country's airspace. A number of leaders of allied countries condemned Russia's actions on Friday. Prime Minister Kaja Kallas stated that the Estonian government had requested consultations with allies regarding Article 4 of NATO. Yeah, we do know that Estonia did invoke Article 4, and NATO is going to be holding consultations with its allies to discuss how they're going to be responding to this airspace violation in Estonia. So I do have a few things I want to share with you regarding that. And over here on X. So let's jump on over here real fast. We're going to start off with Bliskovka. Russia denies violation of Estonian airspace by fighter jets, Russian Defense Ministry says. The ministry said the MiG-31s flew over neutral waters of the Baltic Sea more than 3 kilometers from the Estonian island of Vainlu, heading to Kaliningrad. So yeah, we briefly covered this story this morning with our update video for the Russia-Ukraine war, but for some of you that aren't aware of this, Yeah, this is what Russia was saying, that they did not violate Estonia's airspace at all. They were flying much further away from the capital of Tallinn than what was being reported by the Estonian Defense Ministry. So you guys can let me know what you think, but Russia clearly denying any of these reports that they violated the airspace of NATO. Now, from Jurgen Audit, in Estonia, there are calls to close the border following the incursion of Russian aircraft into the country. But Interior Minister Igor Taro emphasized that the issue of restricting the land border is not currently on the agenda, as this is precisely a violation of airspace. Such a decision would require a provocation at the land border. Okay, so yeah, apparently there's calls to close down the border with Russia and Estonia. But apparently, the Estonian authorities are not ready to do that because they believe that because this was only a violation of airspace, this does not, push for any kind of closing of the border or anything like that. So it looks like they will not be closing the border with Russia, like we've been seeing with like Poland and Belarus, for example. But we'll have to see what else Estonia decides to do. But that was apparently brought up over the last 24 hours. Now, our final update from World Source News 24/7 says breaking: Pentagon notifies European diplomats that the U.S. will reduce military aid to Baltic countries and NATO members near Russia. All right, this is a huge update. Mainstream news picking this story up. That, yeah, apparently the U.S. Pentagon is notifying European diplomats in some of the countries like Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, these Baltic nations, that apparently they are reducing military aid to them. Why would the U.S. do this at a time where potentially Russia could launch an attack onto NATO? There's so much talk about that literally within the next few years, maybe sooner, Russia might be ready to attack NATO. And these are some of the major nations that could come under attack: the Baltic nations, also Finland, maybe even Poland. So this is not good news to see, and this is also worse information that we're hearing that Trump is really starting to pull away support for Europe. And if we happen to see an attack coming from Russia, could it be a possibility that the U.S. is not going to come to their aid? That is definitely not good news to hear, but I wanted to make you guys aware of this situation. So yeah, it's good to see, though, that NATO is ready to step up. At least we're hearing from the Czech president today calling to shoot down these Russian fighter jets that are violating airspace, because this is happening way too much. And at some point, NATO's going to have to step up. And I've been saying that over the last 24 hours, that I'm expecting NATO to come out with some sort of show of force and to let Russia know that they cannot continue doing this. If not, maybe we're going to see a Russian fighter jet get shot down. But let me know what you think about all these details down below in the comment section. That's going to be it for today's update. If you got something out of this, please smash that like button. Also, if you enjoy my content, please consider subscribing down below. Hit the notification bell. That way YouTube can notify you. And with that, hope you all have a great day. Everybody take care and God bless. And we'll see you in the next one.